All right, I think I'm gonna start now. Hello, everyone in the audience, as well as perhaps people watching the recording. Welcome to my class. My name is LDC. I am a Belgian Rocket League coach. I've been for years. As many other people, I started playing the game myself. I still do from time to time, but yeah, coaching has been the biggest part of my stint in this game, as you could say. I started back in 2015, so long time ago, as a 15-year-old gamer. Got into Rocket League in a very funny way, to be honest. A lot of people, some of you may know, but Rocket League was introduced into PlayStation Plus, as a free game, and at first I was like, nah, bro, this game it's literally soccer with cars. Like, how childish is this bullshit? And and then yeah, I got yeah, my mates convinced me to play it, and yeah, the now we're here, I guess. But yeah, I've been coaching for a long time. Like I said, I think even before coaching was really a thing, I was already into like analytical stuff because I used to be a caster back in the day because coaches weren't really a thing until like I'd say 2019, something like that. But at that point, I was casting, and I was always like the more analytical caster of the two. I was always the color caster, as you would call it. Now they mix it a lot, but anyway. Um, but yeah, I mean, 2019, we're now 2025, so that's like 6 years of coaching. Uh, with I think the utmost, the high point of my career, I'd say, is me attending FIFA E as the official Team Belgium Rocket League coach with Atau, Astral, and Compact, which was at least an amazing event. And yeah, that was amazing to attend. But for the reason as to why you are here, that's enough about myself, I guess. Um, there are weekly classes in this Discord that you can attend for free. You don't really have to do anything. You just have to sign up. You just have to join, and you have to just listen and learn. Every single week there's a different pro coach doing a session like this. Last week it was Worties. If you want to watch the VODs, or if you're interested in knowing what the other coaches have been talking about, you can find the link to the YouTube channel in the About Us chat, which Kirika posted in the chat if you scroll up just a little bit. And there you can find VODs, I presume, of the other sessions, and this one is being recorded as well. So if you would like to watch it back afterwards or something didn't really click yet, feel free to do so. So yeah. I'm going to go live with my own presentation that I prepared, or like not really specifically for this, but I have lying around. This presentation comes from a 12-week class that I had prepared for a company called Gosu Academy. They work with like CRL teams, esports organizations, but mostly CRL. And they had asked me to like put together like a 12-week course stuff. So this is one of the weeks. I think this one is about a specifically interesting topic to me, at least. It's in the 5th week, so it's not really like it goes from really basic to like kind of in depth. And this is like week 5, so it's a little bit in the middle. But it still covers like a really important topic that I think is really important for players at any level. So it doesn't really matter what rank you are, or what level you are. I feel like this topic is can be good for any player to learn about and to really grasp. So the question, what is it? And I called it like I don't know if you saw the title, but I called it the core of Rocket League, and that's obviously kind of subjective to me. But I feel that the core of Rocket League is something that is uh, at the core of the strategy. Not really the core of the game. I mean, the game doesn't really matter too much. But the strategy that we that we all try and find as to how to become the best player in the game / the best team in the world, because that's basically what we are all striving to do, or what we all dream of becoming, But hopefully, if I am correct, you should be able to see the presentation, and hopefully that is working without any issue whatsoever. Please feel free to confirm in chat. But for today's content, as you can see, I've divided the whole session into four different parts. We go from 0, and then we go to managing momentum, into one-on-one decisions, and then an assignment. The assignment is obviously something optional for you guys. The assignment is part of the 12-week course that I was talking about earlier, which this is not a part of. So if you want to do the assignment, feel free to do it. But normally this is not really integrated into this specific session. So that being said, let's go right into the first one. So the core of Rocket League, and I'll be explaining what that exactly is in these next couple of slides. So that's what I meant with we're starting from 0. So let me explain what I mean with the core of Rocket League. So if we want to understand how to play this fast-paced esports, we will need to think about it from 0. So basically what I mean by this is like we try and forget like everything we have learned about Rocket League and everything we know, to come from like a place of just complete complete emptiness, I guess you could say, like completely thinking outside of the box, or like not really keeping in mind like everything you've learned. So basically we are playing a car football game, where you need to get past 3 players. So you play 3v3 like in the competitive mode, or 2v2 or 1v1 or whatever. But in 3v3, like in the main competitive mode, you need to get past 3 players to score a goal. That's kind of obvious. These 3 players, these opponents, are going to try and work together to take the ball away from you and score a goal themselves. So basically everyone has the same goal. Work with your team or work alone, whatever game mode you play, and score goals and win games. That's basically it. It's really basic. So how can we defeat all 3 players from the opposing team? Because that's obviously not... it's easier said than done, obviously. Then I refer to the last session. In the last session, so that's the lesson that's hypothetically speaking before this one. I was talking about baiting and switching, so that was more like a team-oriented session. But the bait and switch is a term that I adopted from Call of Duty. I also play and watch a lot of Call of Duty myself, and a bait and switch is basically in Call of Duty is where one player will shoot at someone and then they will run away because they're on low health, and then their teammate will come in to finish the kill. And in Rocket League, I basically see the bait and switch as like forcing for each other. So when you're playing in a team, like someone will as a first man will play a little bit more selfless and throw their car at the ball a little bit more to just try and take the ball away from the opponents so that their teammates can pick it up and continue. So that's what I would consider to be the bait and switch in Rocket League. So this is more like a defensive mechanic used by high-level players and teams because it's an effective way to recover the ball. So how can we counter it? Because basically I feel like most of you will probably, and you can confirm in the chat if that's already the case, but I feel like most of you probably know what baiting or like forcing is for each other. If it's not clear, like if someone doesn't know what that means, for instance, I will explain it. I feel like I've already done so, but if it's unclear, feel free to let me know. But everyone knows what that is, and coming from that, that knowledge is that okay, baiting for each other and forcing for each other is a good thing. Well, then obviously, if the other team is trying to do it, how can we prevent them being successful? So obviously, we want to be successful in baiting or like forcing for each other, but how can we make sure that the opposing team is not successful in doing so? And that's like that's a thing to think about, especially if you wanna be consistent in starting teaming with each other or like teaming in 3v3s and RLCS, for instance. So let's think about it. How can we score goals? What's the easiest way to do it? Well, easy, like easier said than done, again, obviously. But in theory, the easiest way to score is just by having one player outplay all three opponents by himself and scoring, right? But that's sort of impossible, and we all know that. So how can we get from this, picture perfect scenario into something that is actually manageable? That's something that's actually doable. Well, it's technically not impossible. We just have to think about a way that we can actually do it. So because we think it will be very difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't try. So how can we try the 1v3? And this is how I get to the core of Rocket League. The 1v3 is something that is very, very, very difficult to pull off. It's a very difficult sounding plan, but we need to dissect it. So basically, we need to outplay one player and repeat that process 3 times, 1v3. So let's focus on one player at a time. There are multiple requirements for this to work, so let's go over them. First off, we need to get the ball around the player. So we have the ball, we control the ball, and we need to get the ball around the first player challenging from the other team. Okay, let's say we succeed. What do we do then? Okay, then we need to get back in control. So outplaying and getting back in control. That's quite simple. But there is a catch. Not only do we need to be in control of the ball after we outplay the first player, but we also need to have sufficient control before we start our play. So what I mean by that is that you can shoot the ball around the first player, but in doing so, you might make it very difficult for yourself to regain control, like to get back in control after you outplayed the player. So the better your control is before you start the outplay, like before you start playing around your first opponents, the easier it'll be to get in control afterwards. That's basically the point I'm making here. So if we summarize it, the core of Rocket League is outplaying a player and getting back into control so that we can repeat that process as many times as needed to score a goal. So we control, we outplay the player, we control, we outplay the player, we control, we outplay the player, and then we score the goal because that's 3. And even though it's very difficult to successfully pull this off, it doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to be able to do it. And then obviously I don't mean like in a sense where you think like, oh, I don't need my team, I just got 1v3. Like if it's possible to 1v3, like 1v3. There's why would you pause if you can successfully just 1v3, right? But that's very, very, very difficult to pull off. First off, about this first section, is there any questions whatsoever? Like, it doesn't really have to be like if it's something that just you want to ask, like not really, regarding this topic or whatever, like feel free to ask if there's anything. But as of this point, I don't really see anyone typing. So if there is a question, feel free to pop it in chat, but I'll just continue then, I guess. All right, so we went from the core, like just outplaying and control. And now we're going to topic number 2, which is managing momentum. And you might be wondering, what does this guy mean by momentum? Well, if I'm talking about momentum, I'm talking about, momentum being your speed on the pitch. So the speed of the ball, the speed of your play, your team, the speed of you yourself. But the momentum I'm talking about here doesn't refer to a team's current status in a series. Like, for instance, a team is winning like 2-0 in a best of 7. Like they're 2 games up, and they have the momentum, you could say. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about your speed as a player. So the pace at which you play. Playing too slow will hurt your ability to be in the right positions quickly and outpace opponents to the ball. If you play slow, you will most likely never be able to capitalize on mistakes that opponents make. That's also very important. But playing too fast will make you overshoot your positioning and put you in awkward spots, making it difficult to control the ball and hold possession. And that's something that personally I struggle with sometimes, is playing too fast. I will arrive at a play too early, but not kill my momentum like soon enough. And then I'll be like in positions where I have to turn around and just makes it super awkward. But I'll show we'll cover a replay after this. Knowing this, how do we go about balancing? So how can we find like a good balance between playing fast and slow? Well, how can we make sure we aren't playing either too slow or too fast? How can we manage our momentum so that we have the right speed for every situation, and how do we recognize when we need to speed up and when we need to slow down. So knowing when you need to play fast and when you need to slow down is a very, very good skill to have. And it gives you, or at least it shows that you have like a certain level of understanding about this game that is oftentimes going to be better than other people, than other players. Because not a lot of people do this correctly. And like I said before, like I've been coaching this game for years and years and years, and I've been playing for years and years and years, and I still frequently make mistakes on this. So it's definitely not something that is easily mastered. But how do we do it? So if we want to know how to manage our momentum, we need to know what determines how fast we should be playing. So coming from the statements, how do we put that into like a theory, and how can we know, like especially in game, what we should do? But generally, like there's a rule of thumb. So the closer you are to the ball in rotation, the faster you want to play. So how can I explain this? So let's say the opponent's team, like we're playing 3v3, a scrim for instance, and the opponents, like they have possession of the ball. So the first man is the player that's going to be challenging the ball first, obviously. And let's say the opponent team is controlling the ball, so they have control over the balls, which means our first and second man are going to have to perform the bait and switch, or like hello? Oh damn. Sorry about that. My headset just decided to. I'm not gonna say it, but it just turned off, I guess. Anyway, I was talking about this hypothetical scenario, right? So we're scrimming, the other team is controlling the ball. So like I said, our first and second man are going to try and force for each other. So our first man will just generally sort of throw themselves at the play, so that our second man has an easy time to actually hit the ball. And our third man will be, covering, the worst case scenario, as we always say. So in that scenario, the first man will be playing the fastest because they are trying to force for the second man. The second man is sort of like following in behind, and the third man is chilling. They're covering. They're covering mostly, defensive scenarios, right? So that's what I mean with like that rule of thumb. So here you can see it. So here, this is the first man. Let's say they're like in this scenario, our team, or like this team has the ball. So if you're rotating out just after challenging the ball, you want to play fast. So let's raise this guy, for instance. Like they're close to the ball, but they're not first in rotation. So what do they want to do? They want to try and get behind as fast as they can, because obviously if they take too long and the rotation, like this guy and this guy, they move faster, then nobody is covering defense. So if you make your play, like often it's the best decision to just try and rotate as fast as possible to help your team and allow your team to move up in rotation, right? To help each other out. But when rotating like this, like obviously your main goal is to reposition and collect boosts. This guy then, when you're first man, you ideally want to play slower, since you want to be ready to react to your opponent's play. So this being a scenario then that the opponents are not in control. Or like that there's like a midfield battle going on where nobody is really in control, but like the ball is like flying around a lot. This player will then basically sort of be lurking. Okay, so playing too fast as a first man here will limit your options to force for your second man. And like I said before, this is for instance something that I was struggling with as well. It's like I will arrive too fast to a play and then not have a lot of options to work with. Or like not being able to cover where the ball's actually going or where the opponent actually put it. But there's more. I just said that as a first man, you need to play slow. But what if the opponent is playing fast as a first man? Let's say they're controlling the ball, but they're making a very fast play. Well, in some situations you will need to be able, or like you will need to match the pace of your opponent. But this is mostly the case when the ball is closer to your half, since slowing down too much here means your teammates will have to slow down as well. So if I go back a little bit, let's say for like in this instance, or we all know that like everybody is like in defense. Let's say all three of us are like in defense, and our first man is waiting too long to challenge like the opponent that's, you know, let's say for instance air dribbling the ball towards our net, right? Like if the first man waits too long, the second man will have no time to react. Like the later the first man goes, the harder it will be for the second man or like the third man in net to react, because they just have not enough time. So if you go sooner, and you like I said here, you need to match the pace. Like if they are closer in your half, you need to play faster, because otherwise your teammates are not gonna have enough time. Is there any questions about this part? Because otherwise we will just be moving on to the final part of the theoretical situation here, and we'll be getting to the point and to the actual replay. The replay is about 1900 2K level, if you're interested. It's a game from a scrim we played, or like I played yesterday? No, the day before. Tuesday, I think. But I see Keeks is typing. I'm gonna move on for now, but I will answer as soon as I see the question pop up, if there's a question. But let's go to one-on-one decisions. So basically what we've done is I've explained the core of Rocket League. So what I feel like is a good starting point of like how to think about the game, because I feel like a lot of people nowadays are watching RLCS and just seeing how fast everyone plays, and they're trying to replicate how fast everybody plays, but not really grasp like what these guys are doing while playing fast, you know? Like it's not just that these guys are playing super fast. No, they're executing all of these things, like all of these perfect touches to stay in control and this and that, like while playing fast, you know? But let's actually read the question first. In terms of managing boost on the rotations, do you suggest going straight to goals, or should you go straight into post and grab boost once the ball is cleared, just to manage boost and rotations? Well, I think that sort of depends on what the situation is. Like let's say for instance you there's a counter attack and you're still stuck on the opposite side of the pitch, and your teammate is alone in defense, then yeah, obviously you want to try and scramble back as fast as you can. But if you're the last one in rotation and you know you see that there's a teammate in net, and like for instance your other teammate is like, you know, 50ing the ball in your own corner or something like that, yeah, then you could take a little bit more time, grab some pads, maybe even like a big pad if you feel like you have the time for it. But then you need to then you can take a little bit more time. It comes down to how you judge like how much time you think you will have in order to fulfill that position in like as third, mostly or most of the time in defense. If that sort of answered your question, I feel like it's sort of okay. Awesome, thank you. But let's go with the last subject of this little course. But what are the one-on-one decisions? Well, these are decisions that a player makes as to how to outplay a player. So, you know, your own personal choice as to what play to make in order to get the ball around, you know, the opponent. Well, keep in mind, not only do we want to get the ball past the player, like we said before in the beginning, but we also want to be able to get in control afterwards. So how can we do that? How do we go about making a decision that has the highest possibility of this ideal outcome? Well, in this next segment, we will be talking about this small process, from analyzing the situation at hand to making the right decision for it. And that's sort of also how I formulated the answer to Ike's question. Is the perfect play depends on the scenario, obviously. And there's never like a specific right answer. Like people have their own way of going about how to execute these sort of scenarios. And some people may have the right idea about something, and some people might not. But that's always up for debate. So what we do with the ball and the decision we make can make the difference between your team scoring a goal or conceding. You are the start of the next play. And what I mean by that is the decision you make could lose the ball and could result in like a counter attack from the opponents, or otherwise you could also be making a really good play and allowing your team to score. And as we all know in this game, it's very fast paced. So a really good play can easily amount into a goal, but a really bad play can also just concede, you know? But in order to make the right decision, we need information. And we need as much information as we can get. So where do we start from? Our own positioning and boost amount. That's a given. I'd say that's something that everyone should be able to should be able to come to by themselves. But also the ball. The ball is also very important because not only like if let's say you're in a good position, you have 100 boost. Like obviously that's perfect. But the ball is going fast. Well, if the ball is going fast, it's going to be hard to take control. So how do we tackle that? Well, if the ball is going slow, we might be tempted into shooting the ball forward, but then obviously we don't have any control. So the ball is also a very important part in that. And then obviously as well the opponent's speed and positioning, whether or not they might be challenging or not. That's also information that is very important. So if you can collect as much information as possible, then you can start thinking about what decision to make. And the first part of your decision and the first part of your play, especially the play, is how you approach the ball. Well, how you approach the ball is very important for the continuation of your play. So approaching the ball fast could mean you are first to the ball and would give you control over the situation, but playing fast, like I said, makes it difficult to control. Well, the other thing is that if you are faster to the ball, you have options. Fast first touch when the opponent is close, or slow down to bait an opponent in for a challenge. Oftentimes, when people have a lot of boost, they will be a little bit faster to try and get the ball around the player because they know that they have a lot of boost to try and get back to the ball to get back in control. But let's say someone is really close to the ball and they have like 12 boost, for instance, then people will sometimes prefer to play a 50-50 because that's keeping the ball close and it's easier for your team to stay in control over the ball if the ball stays close. So, like I said before, playing fast has its advantages, but sometimes playing slow, and like I said, like if you're on low boost, baiting in for a 50-50, the whole goal is to try and pull your position or like your opponent into a disadvantageous position. And approaching fast might make your opponent hold off from challenging you. So if you don't notice this, you're just going to give the ball away. So let's say the ball is like in the midfield and it's your turn to go as a first man. And your opponent is quite far away, but they are looking to challenge you as well. So if you approach fast and you're gonna beat them by a mile, a lot of opponents will just sit back and let you hit the ball and hope that you just will give it to them. So if you don't recognize that they don't challenge you at all and you still like hit the ball really hard, then it's obviously most likely just going to give away possession, right? But if you approach fast and your opponent sees that and they hold off from challenging, they don't challenge, then you can take it slow. Then you slow down, you take a touch, and you control, and you're on your way. Basically, the point of approaching fast is like having dominance over the vicinity of the ball. So, like I said, if you approach fast and the opponent is like quite far away, they will hold off, mostly because they think, oh, this guy will beat me anyway. So if I go now, he'll just shoot the ball around me, and most likely they won't. They obviously don't want that to happen. But on the other side, let's say you're just a little bit faster than your opponent, and your opponent thinks that they can actually get a 50-50 against you, and they challenge you. Well, then you also pull them into a disadvantageous position because you can still get the ball around them. So all of that stuff I just said it comes to the next part of high player or like high rating players will often abuse this sort of thought process to trick their opponents into thinking that they might have a chance of getting like a 50-50. So I will for some time, like sometimes, I've made plays like this before, and this is a play that often works, I feel, is faking that you have no boost, for instance. So like approaching the ball with no boost, and then when you see your opponent like challenging because they think, oh, this guy has no boost, I can easily just get the ball around him. Then you start boosting and you just outpace them. So it's all literally like it goes like it's like a staircase. It's like, okay, this works, but they counter it. Okay, this works, and then they counter it again. And then you just like constantly just think about ways to just outwit your opponents like that. But anyway, first touch. That's the main part of the play, right? The first touch is really important though, because it sort of determines what will happen afterwards. So let's say, like I said before, your opponent is challenging. This is sort of like a recapitulation, I guess, because I already spoke about it, I think. But your opponent is challenging, so the first touch needs to be around them, but in a way where you can get around them yourself and regain control. Because oftentimes when people, especially in the air, people would touch the ball once, but then get bumped by the other guy that's also flying to the ball. So ideally, you obviously get the touch and get around the player as well. You don't get bumped. That's what that first scenario is. And secondly, if you have space, like obviously you should slow down. First touch, make your first touch slower, so that it's easier for you to take control. Because if you have space anyway, like it doesn't really matter where your touch goes, or you don't really need to worry about getting in around somebody. You can just, completely think about yourself and how you're gonna get in control. So there's no need for any haste or speed, And then once you've touched the ball around the player, that's the tricky part, right? Because if they're challenging fast, then obviously you need a fast touch, but those are hard to control. So getting it around the player isn't that difficult, because everybody can just shoot the ball like to the other side of the pitch and call it a day, But that's ideally not what you want. You obviously want to try and get it around the player and get in control again. So if you can't succeed in doing this, like if you can't get control again after your first touch or after playing an opponent, it will ultimately lead to you just giving the ball away. And that's exactly what like those boomer clears are, because yeah, it'll get you out of defense. And in some scenarios, it's justified. But in a lot of scenarios, I feel like players are just shooting the ball away without any regard for the situation after, or without thinking about, I might actually just, completely concede possession doing this. But yeah, that's what this is. So if you can't get around the player and get control, you're just giving away the ball, like giving away possession. And that means your opponents will eventually have succeeded in baiting and switching. Even if the first man on their part is nowhere near the ball, if you just clear it and they get control, then I guess you could say they didn't even have to bait and switch, but they have control, and that's good for them, obviously. And that's where discipline comes in. So as we discussed before, like the ultimate goal is to be able to outplay all three opponents with only one player. So that's like the ideal scenario. However, as we all know, that's way easier said than done. Therefore, we need to instill some discipline in our decision making. And this will be discussed in another week's episode, but that's from this course. I will just quickly explain it to you after this. But at the end, this lesson should have given you a good basic understanding of how we can step away from playing boomer ball and move to a more strategic and structured game of Rocket League. So this whole thing, this discipline thing, if I would have to condense it down into like a minute of, or like not even, but a short explanation, is like knowing that if you shoot the ball, or like if you clear the ball or shoot the ball like a flip around the first player, will ultimately give away possession. A lot of people will, or like a lot of high-rated players will be able to make the analysis of where the ball will end up. So let's say I have the ball and I have a ton of boost, and I have one player challenging me. And from my information, like all the information I gathered, which I spoke about before, all that information tells me that I will be able to get the ball past this player and get in control, no worries. Well then, okay, I will do that, obviously. But let's say the opponent, or like the first man, is really close and is aggressively challenging me. And I know that, okay, I might be able to get the ball around this player, but I have no clue if I will be able to, get my car around them and not get them motor bumped, or get around him but not get in control, or like get in control over the ball again. I have no idea if I will be able to do it. Well, then obviously, still trying to do that and still trying to shoot that ball, like shoot the ball past that one player, has most likely a high risk of just losing possession or giving away possession. Well, then players that are disciplined and players that will make the right analysis will know that actually shooting the ball past this first player challenging is actually not going to be worth it, since I'm most likely going to give away possession anyway. And then those players will know that, okay, shooting the ball or actually outplaying this first player is actually not the right play. Going for a 50-50 or a pass is going to be a play that is more fruitful for my team. And that's where we want to be at. That's what discipline is, and that's what all of the higher tier teams. I don't know if I would have to put a rank onto it, but like at least like people that are SSL, at least, but maybe even like the GC levels, like higher GC levels, will start to realize this and implement this into their decision making. But that's it for the theoretical part. If there's any questions from anyone, or like I said, it doesn't even have to regard the topic itself. Like if you just have a general question, feel free to ask it as well. But this is